I was folding t-shirts into a busted duffel when my plan for the future fell apart in real time. The call was supposed to take 2 minutes. I'd saved my grandma's college fund info in my notes, had the bank routing number ready, and even wrote out a dumb little script like, "Hi, I'm Blaine Hollister, just transferring funds to my school account." Instead, the lady on the other end said, "Okay." And the balance today is $317.92. I stood there, silent. Thought I misheard her. "I'm sorry, what was that?" She repeated it, even slower. I said, "No, that's wrong. It's supposed to be close to, 193,000. She paused. "This is a UTMA account. You're listed as the beneficiary. But it says here your custodian's made multiple withdrawals over the past year." My heart was hammering. Custodian? Who's listed? Garth Hollister, my dad. Before we go further, my name's Blaine Hollister. I'm 58 now, but this happened when I was 18 and counting down 19 days till college move-in. I grew up in Cypress Hollow, Tennessee, the kind of town where news travels faster than weather. Our house was on Dogwood Lane, where the only scoreboard that ever mattered was the one my mom kept in her head. Tamsin, my sister, older by 9 years, was the golden child. Freelance makeup artist, flaky in the worst way. But if she lit up a room, my mom acted like it was the Oscars. Me? I worked at a little bookstore on Wren Avenue. No drama, paid my deposits, saved my own money, stayed out of trouble. But that fund, that was supposed to be untouchable. My grandma Irene told me since I was a kid, every holiday, every birthday, she'd been putting money away for my education, month after month, 18 years straight. And now it was gone. "Can you tell me when the withdrawals started?" I asked the bank lady, my voice shaking. "Looks like 11 months ago." The withdrawals range from $8,200 to $1,690, all authorized by the custodian. I thanked her, hung up, and just sat there staring at my dresser. My stomach felt like I'd swallowed a stone. I walked out into the living room. My mom was on the couch watching some rerun. I said, "Hey, do you know what happened to the college account? Grandma's fund?" She didn't even mute the TV, just said, "Oh, that money went toward Tamsin's house." I blinked. "What?" "That was my money." She shrugged. "She's the only one who really matters in this family." That line didn't hit me in the chest. It hit me in the spine, like something permanent shifted. I didn't scream, didn't cry. I turned, walked down the hall, sat on my bed, and called my grandma. She picked up on the second ring. I didn't even get the whole sentence out before she said, "Come here, now." 20 minutes later, I was in her driveway with my hands still shaking. Quick note, before we continue, share in the comments which country you're watching from, and let's continue. Grandma answered the door before I could knock, like she'd been standing on the other side with her hand on the knob. Her hair was pulled back tight, no makeup, and her robe was already off, dressed like she had somewhere to be. She looked at me like I'd been late, even though it was exactly 7:30. "Bring your envelopes?" she asked. I held up a manila folder with every birthday card, Christmas card, and one-off letter she'd ever sent. She waved me in, turned, and walked straight to the kitchen without waiting for a reply. Her house smelled like it always did, coffee, lemon cleaner, a hint of wood from the porch swing out back. But the vibe was different. The table was covered in binders, 3 neat stacks. Legal pads lined up next to a black accordion file that had tape across one corner like it had survived a flood. There was no breakfast, no small talk. She sat down, opened the first binder, and slid a page toward me in a clear sleeve. "UTMA set up paperwork," she said. "Filed a week after you were born. You're the beneficiary. Your father is the custodian." I looked down and saw my name typed clean in the middle, my dad's name in the bottom box, her handwriting in the margins, dates, notes, arrow marks. I didn't say anything. I just kept flipping through as she passed me more. Annual statements, printed emails from the bank, exact dates and amounts of every deposit she'd ever made. 18 years, monthly, like clockwork. "I called the bank the day you were born," she said, already opening a second binder. "Set it up right before they cut your cord." She got up without a word and walked over to the fire safe near the laundry room. I watched her punch in the code like she'd done it 1,000 times blindfolded. She came back holding a smaller folder, and out of it came a single sheet of paper in a plastic protector with a raised seal and 2 signatures. "What's that?" I asked, my voice low. "My insurance letter," she said, "written and notarized when you were 12. Says exactly what to do if they touched your money without legal cause. It's been in that safe ever since." I wanted to ask what made her write something like that so early, but I already knew. She didn't trust them even back then. Not fully. And she didn't want to wait until it was too late. She didn't curse my parents, didn't rant or cry or say one bad word. She just looked at me and said, "We're not guessing. We're proving." Around lunchtime, she made a single phone call, then packed everything into 2 banker boxes and told me to carry them to the car. We drove to a small brick office across from the library. No signs out front except a bronze plate by the door. Granger Law, PLLC. Inside, we met Celine Granger, mid-40s, hair in a French twist, no jewelry, but a smart watch and a silver ring. Her handshake was dry and solid. Her voice was calm, but never soft, like she'd spent 20 years telling people their worst suspicions were correct. She let Grandma lay it all out, binder by binder, no interruptions. Then she looked at me and said, "You need to understand something. That account was yours. UTMA laws say the custodian must act in the best interest of the minor. Period. Your father had no right to spend that money on anyone but you." She tapped the top of the binder. "This is theft, Blaine. It meets both civil and criminal thresholds." "What happens now?" I asked. "We file a civil suit for restitution, and we submit a criminal complaint to the DA's office." I hesitated. "If we do this, won't it blow up everything? My family?" Grandma didn't blink. "They blew it up, honey. We're just putting up a sign that says, 'Who did it?'" Celine leaned forward. "One more thing. Once this leaves our hands and the DA takes it on, you don't get to call it off just because someone cries in court. You understand?" I nodded. Grandma looked at me, steady as ever. "We're not hiding this. We're going public. Because your mother lives off the story she controls. We're cutting off her oxygen." I opened the front door and barely stepped inside before I saw her standing there, arms crossed, one hip cocked like she was posing for a church photo. "Where have you been?" she said, like she hadn't drained my future and handed it to my sister. "And who exactly have you dragged into this now?" She already knew. She wanted the performance. I didn't answer, just started toward my room. She followed fast. "Don't walk away from me, Blaine. After everything I've done for you, after the sacrifices..." I turned and stared at her. She cut off mid-sentence, eyes narrowing like she just remembered she was supposed to be mad, not begging. Then her whole tone shifted. "You better not make a fool out of this family at church," she said, low and sharp. "People don't need to hear your version of things." My dad had appeared by then, hovering near the garage door. He didn't say a word, just looked down like the concrete was more interesting than the fact that his wife had robbed their kid. I pushed past both of them and went to my room. Shut the door. Before I even sat down, I heard her in the hallway, phone to her ear. "No, I'm handling it, Tamsin," she said in that voice she saved for outsiders, light, sweet, like she was the victim of some random fire. "He's just confused." Grandma's stirring the pot again. You know how she gets? Later that night, my phone buzzed. My cousin Bria Latimer, 19, blunt in the way only Bria could be, sent me 4 screenshots from the family group chat, a chat I wasn't even part of. The first was my mom saying it was a misunderstanding. The second said Grandma Irene was confused and vindictive in her old age. The third warned everyone to not engage with Blaine until he calms down. And the last one, I'm praying for him. He's clearly under stress, but the truth will come out. I could have thrown my phone through the wall. Then Bria texted, "Don't let up, we're watching." I didn't answer her. I didn't post anything. I let Grandma and Celine do what they did best. Line up the facts, not the feelings. My mom would always win a talking contest. I wasn't going to fight her on a platform built for spin. 2 days in, Pastor Allison left a voicemail saying she hoped my mom would take a pause from her church duties for the good of the congregation, which told me the whispers had already started traveling. Bria called the next afternoon and said my mom had posted in a local Facebook prayer group asking for guidance and peace, saying her own mother had turned on her and was trying to destroy the family. I didn't even have to see it to know the tone. Vulnerable, church-going, poor Marla, who tries so hard. I kept going to work at the bookstore like usual, stocking shelves, ringing up regulars, smiling through a stomach that stayed knotted up like a bad extension cord. Every minute felt like something was about to drop, and all I could do was keep moving, like nothing had cracked. Grandma called while I was closing up. "Gwen Saylor's in," she said, "reporter, but she wants documentation, no tears, no drama." I told her we had that covered. By Saturday, the backyard looked like someone paid for a party planner, not someone under fire for robbing their own kid. Streamers hung across the fence like it was a wedding. There were folding chairs set up in little clusters, white tablecloths over every surface, a graduation cake with my name piped in blue icing, and a banner that read, "We're so proud of you, Blaine." Like the irony was part of the theme. My mom floated through it all in a navy blue dress and wedge heels, hugging guests, kissing cheeks, laughing way too loud. She kept touching my shoulder in front of people, like we were close, like I wasn't quietly building a case against her. Teachers came, neighbors, church ladies who brought bundt cakes and salad bowls. Tamsin showed up wearing a sundress that probably cost more than my entire semester's book list. She had sunglasses on her head and didn't look at me once the first hour. I smiled. I shook hands. I answered the same questions 100 times and kept my jaw tight the whole way through, like I could smile hard enough to keep from cracking. My great-aunt Dina Welch waddled up while I was grabbing a soda from the cooler, sweet, harmless, and nosy like most people her age. She patted my arm and said, "Blaine, I just know you're going to shine wherever you end up." Grandma Irene must be bursting with pride. "So, what college did you say you're headed to?" Before I could open my mouth, my mom swooped in like a hawk. "He's still deciding," she said, with a perfect little chuckle. "You know how kids are. We had to redirect some of the fun to where the family needed it most." She said it like it was nothing, like it made sense. Then she smiled and tipped her chin toward Tamsin like she'd just named Employee of the Month. I didn't say a word, just sipped my drink while my jaw burned, but I caught it, just past my mom's shoulder. Corinne Latimer, my old lit teacher, had frozen mid-bite at the snack table. Her fork was still halfway to her mouth, and her eyes were locked on my mom like she'd just watched her confess to something out loud that people only used to whisper about. I let my mom keep talking. Every word was a breadcrumb, and every guest who heard her say it had just become a future witness. The party wound down around 5. People filtered out with leftover cake and party favors like nothing dark had happened. I was dumping a trash bag into the bin by the porch when I heard steps behind me. "Blaine," Tamsin said. I turned. She looked pale, nervous, holding her elbow like she was cold even though it was mid-June. She glanced around, then said, "Is it true? The fund, was it legally yours? Or was it just family money that Mom moved around?" I pulled out my phone and opened the photo I'd taken of the UTMA paperwork from Grandma's binder. I handed it to her. "That's my name," I said. "Beneficiary. Dad was just the custodian." She stared at it like it was in another language. Her face went stiff. "She told me it came from a refinance," Tamsin said. "She even showed me letters, loan numbers, said it was approved for renovations and equity." I believed her. I looked at her and didn't say anything. Because what was there to say? She kept going. She said she'd found a way to help me without hurting anyone. She said you wouldn't notice, that there was more than enough. I didn't ask questions, Blaine. I trusted her. That was when it really hit me. This wasn't just a theft. This was a con built deep enough to fool the people inside the house. Fake documents, coach stories. My own sister had signed her mortgage on a lie and didn't even know it. I took my phone back and turned toward the porch without another word. I didn't trust myself to speak. Monday morning started with a scream that ripped straight through the hallway. Not the kind someone makes when they drop a plate or stub a toe. This one had rage in it, sharp enough that I sat straight up in bed before I was even fully awake. Footsteps pounded down the hall, and my door flew open so hard it smacked the wall. My mom stood there in a bathrobe, hair half brushed, waving a thick white envelope like it was a weapon. "What did you do?" she shouted. I swung my legs off the bed and looked at the return address on the envelope in her hand. Granger Law, so the mail had arrived. "That letter says you filed a criminal complaint," she snapped, shaking the pages. "You actually pressed charges against your own parents?" I rubbed my eyes once and stood up. "I didn't press anything. The lawyer filed it." "Oh, don't play word games with me," she fired back. You dragged us into court like we're criminals. You took my college fund, I said, steady. What exactly would you call that? Her face twisted, like she couldn't believe I'd said it out loud. That money went to your sister, she said. It stayed in the family. It was never yours to move. She stepped closer, voice dropping low and poisonous. If you keep this going, Blaine, you are dead to this family. Do you understand me? I held her stare. For once, I didn't feel like the kid in the room. I've been the extra person in this house my whole life, I said quietly. You just finally said it out loud. For a second, the room went dead silent. Then she turned and stormed out, still clutching the letter like she wanted to tear it in half, but didn't know if that would make things worse. I got dressed and left the house before round 2 could start. That afternoon, my dad found me in the garage while I was digging through a box of old books I'd planned to sell before college. He closed the side door behind him like we were about to discuss something illegal. His voice was low, careful. We can fix this privately. I leaned against the workbench and looked at him. Privately how? He rubbed the back of his neck and stared at the concrete. Your mother and I can figure out a repayment plan. No courts, no police. Just family working it out. 11 months of withdrawals, I said. That wasn't an accident, Dad. He didn't answer, just kept staring at the floor. Later that evening I called Celine and told her what he'd said. She didn't sound surprised. Private deals don't erase bank records, she said. Once money moves like that, it leaves a trail. The legal process exists because people try to bury those trails. A few days after that, she shared something from her notes that finally explained the weird silence I'd been watching from my dad since this started. Years earlier, he'd messed up a home inspection job, missed structural damage on a house that later needed major repairs. The buyer threatened a lawsuit, and he settled it quietly to keep his license clean. My mom had kept the paperwork. According to Celine, she used it like a leash. Every time a bank form needed signing, every time money moved out of that account, my dad signed because the alternative was watching his career explode in public. It didn't make him innocent, but it explained why every time my mom opened her mouth, he looked like a man swallowing nails. Meanwhile, Grandma Irene didn't waste a second on yelling or family speeches. She stayed precise. Every phone call was about dates, signatures, account numbers, and statutes. Every document went into the binder like evidence waiting for a courtroom. And every day the case got stronger. She just kept stacking the proof. Gwen Saylor showed up to Grandma's place right on time, notepad in one hand, cameraman behind her, rolling a tripod case. She didn't ask how we were, didn't offer coffee. She wanted one thing only, proof. Grandma walked her through it like she'd practiced every sentence in front of a mirror. UTMA law, her monthly deposits, every line item going back 18 years. She had physical copies, bank records, certified mail receipts, withdrawal logs. Gwen didn't flinch, just nodded and wrote everything down. She pointed at the closing balance, circled in red ink, $317.92. That's the number? She asked. Yes, Grandma said. That's what was left after they spent over $193,000. We gave her permission to use names. Gwen asked me if I wanted to go on camera. I said no, not yet. 2 nights later, the segment aired. 7 minutes, no fluff. Just numbers, terms, legal breakdowns, and names spelled out in captions across the screen. My parents, my sister, me. By sunrise, Cypress Hollow wasn't a town anymore. It was a courtroom without a judge. I didn't go online that first night, didn't read a word. Bria did it for me. She sent me screenshots, names I recognized, people I didn't. The split was instant. Some called me brave. Some called me ungrateful. One lady commented, "There's always more to the story," and someone else replied, "Yeah, but the bank statements don't lie." Then came the one that mattered. Corinne Latimer, my 11th grade lit teacher, posted on her public page, "I taught Blaine Hollister for 4 years. He earned everything the hard way." This story doesn't surprise me. It only confirms what I already knew. Hundreds of likes, dozens of shares. In a small town, that was thunder. My mom clapped back online with a long post about family resources and sacrifices no one sees behind the scenes. She threw in a Bible verse and said she'd prayed over the situation. Gwen reposted the story with a note. For clarity, custodial accounts under UTMA law must be used solely for the child's benefit. Here's the full statute. She dropped a direct link. No opinions, just law. That was the end of Mom's spin campaign. 3 days later, Marta Garza, the woman who owned the little gift and decor shop where my mom worked, put her on leave, told her they couldn't risk headlines like felony theft when people were buying scented candles and baby shower gifts. My dad didn't get fired, but his schedule started thinning out. At first it was just one job canceled, then two. Then clients started saying, "We'll let you know," which in Cypress Hollow means, "Don't call us again." Pastor Allison called again, this time to officially ask my mom to take a season away from the Women's Planning Committee. She told him she felt attacked for having a hard year. She didn't lose her faith. She just stopped being invited to coordinate potlucks. Back at the bookstore, I kept my head down, just shelved books, swept the floors, and stayed out of the spotlight. I didn't think anyone would do anything. Then one day, Reed, the owner, crusty in the best way, took an old peanut butter jar, slapped a printed label on it, and set it by the register. Blaine's Books and Housing Fund. That's all it said. No speech, no announcement. People filled it anyway. Reed told me later that he saw customers he barely knew dropping 20s and 50s like they were covering a tab they hadn't run up. One woman even handed him 100 and said, "He deserves more than what that family left him with." That hit harder than the online noise. Not because it was money, but because it meant someone believed me without asking for anything in return. Celine called just after dinner while I was wiping down the bookstore counter. I stepped outside to take it, phone pressed tight to my ear like I already knew it wasn't a casual check-in. "The DA just subpoenaed the bank," she said. "They want official statements from you and Irene, under oath. Time, names, dates, the whole thing." I said I'd be ready. "They're noticing something in the withdrawal pattern," she added. "Small enough amounts to avoid internal alerts, spaced out just right. It wasn't sloppy, it was learned. Learned." That word landed hard. Somebody had studied how to steal without tripping alarms. Not an accident, not a panic move. Calculated. A couple days later, Gwen called Grandma to ask about something Tamsin had said offhand. Those refinance letters. Gwen's team ran them through basic verification and found them riddled with errors, font mismatches, logos slightly off-center, routing numbers that didn't exist. The documents weren't just forged, they were designed to pass a quick glance, not scrutiny. Not amateur mistakes, Gwen told us. These were made by someone who knew how to get close to real without getting caught. That same week, I got a Facebook message from someone I hadn't seen since 5th grade, Tess Malloy. Back then, she and my mom were tight, always working bake sales and church fairs together. The message was short, polite, and written like she was nervous to even send it. "Hey Blaine, I'm sorry for what you're going through. I figured I should say something. Years ago, your mom borrowed $4,700 from me, said she'd pay me back after a house refinance. Never did. Wouldn't return my calls after that. I thanked her, and then I forwarded it straight to Celine. She called it a pattern. Charm, pressure, vanish. Use relationships like stepping stones until they're no longer useful." The pattern hit even harder 2 days later, when Celine asked me to pull my credit report. I sat on Grandma's couch with my laptop, logged in, and started scrolling. I didn't get far. There was a credit card I'd never opened. The address on file was our house. The statement had charges for home improvement supplies, paint, fixtures, tools, made around the time Tamsin closed on her place. I felt the back of my neck go hot. "Blaine," Celine said over the speakerphone, "this lines up with the renovation dates she gave us. If that card was used for her property and you didn't authorize it, we may be looking at identity fraud. I didn't see my mom fill out the application. I didn't catch her swiping the card, but the pieces snapped together fast. My name, my number, our address, and the payments, pulled from the same joint account she drained my UTMA from." Celine told the DA. She said the reaction was immediate, like someone in the room finally stood up from their chair. Theft was one thing. Identity fraud had more weight, stronger statutes, tighter definitions, easier to prove, harder to explain away. The same day, Bria forwarded a few screenshots from the group chat. My mom had posted another guilt-soaked rant, telling the family I'd fallen under Grandma's spell and was being brainwashed by a lawyer who wants a paycheck. She said I was trying to rip the family apart for tuition money. Bria added one line beneath the screenshots. "Nobody's buying it anymore." I didn't fire back, neither did Grandma. She just opened a new folder, labeled it Exhibits, Phase 2, and started printing. My phone rang while I was walking home from the bookstore, sun still hanging just above the rooftops. It was Tamsin. She didn't lead with small talk, just said, "I got my own lawyer." I stopped walking. Why? Because I don't trust Mom to tell me the truth anymore. There was a pause, like she wasn't sure whether to keep going. Then she did. "I've been sick in that house, Blaine. Not just sick like worried. I mean, actually sick. Ever since you showed me the paperwork, it's like everything feels fake. The walls, the floors. I keep thinking about how many of those dollars came from your name." I leaned against a brick wall outside the old post office and let her talk. "I should have known something was off," she said. "Mom rushed me to sign the loan stuff. She kept saying not to overthink it, not to confuse myself with numbers, that she already had everything handled. She's good at that," I said, "telling you what's too complicated for you to understand, so you'll just nod." "She coached me, Blaine." "What do you mean?" "I still have the texts," she said. "She told me what to say if anyone asked about where the house money came from. She told me to say it was a family loan, that everything was above board, and that I didn't need to worry about the details." My heart pounded faster than I wanted it to. "I'll send them to Celine," she added. "Also, I took pictures of the fake refinance letters." "Wait, you have them?" "She left them out on her desk one morning. I noticed the same logo mistake you mentioned. I didn't say anything, just took the photos and walked out." Tamsin kept her word. She emailed everything to Celine that night. Screenshots, document photos, even a short statement explaining what she'd been told and when. Celine called me the next morning just to say, "Your sister just handed us evidence." I didn't see the next part myself, but I heard it in two versions. First from Tamsin, then from Dad. She went home that afternoon and told Mom she was listing the house. Said she didn't want to live inside a crime scene. Said it didn't feel like hers anymore. Mom apparently lost it, called her ungrateful, said she was choosing Blaine over her own mother, used every guilt weapon she'd ever used on me, the sacrifices, the tears, the "what I gave up for you" script. But Tamsin didn't fold. She walked out of the room, called her realtor, and signed the papers the same night. She also told Celine she wanted the sale proceeds to go straight into a restitution account. No middlemen, no wiggle room, just a straight pipeline to what was owed. 3 days later, Celine got a call from my dad's attorney. He wanted to talk about cooperation. That was the first moment I realized denial had left the building. With the forged documents exposed and witnesses turning over receipts, there was no path left for spin, only paperwork. I should have felt triumphant. I didn't. What I felt was silence, a quiet so thick it made the floor creak, like something had finally stopped screaming inside my body. All the tension, the shouting, the slammed doors, it all dropped off, replaced by manila folders, notarized statements, and people in suits trading facts. It was like my life had turned into evidence. And I wasn't holding it up anymore. The system was. The court filings went live on a Thursday morning. Bria texted me the link before I even saw it myself. Official charges filed against Garth and Marla Hollister for felony misuse of custodial assets, identity fraud, and financial abuse of a dependent. It wasn't gossip anymore. It was docket numbers, court dates, real signatures. I stared at the screen in silence for a while. Then I shut my laptop and went back to shelving books at the store like nothing happened. I couldn't feel anything that day. It was like my emotions hit a kill switch. My dad pled out first. He agreed to a reduced charge, probation, and a structured restitution plan. Part of the deal meant full cooperation, names, signatures, statements under oath. His lawyer said it was the smart move. Celine said it was the only one left. My mom dragged it out. Spent weeks insisting she had custodial discretion, like the UTMA account was just a piggy bank with her name on it. But the forged refinance documents and the credit card in my name tore that argument to shreds. She held out until the last possible week. Then she took the plea. No jail time, but a felony on her record and a court order to repay every dollar she'd touched that didn't belong to her. Celine called it a win that came with splinters. Tamsin's house sold fast, quieter neighborhood, newer build, decent staging. After realtor fees and mortgage payoff, the check came out to about $184,600. That didn't cover everything, but it covered enough for the judge to see restitution wasn't just a word we threw around. Celine walked into that hearing holding proof of effort. Real money, not promises. The judge nodded once and signed off on the settlement structure with no objections. Around the same time, Corinne Latimer reached out to the school board and started a community scholarship drive. In my name. Not for pity, not for show. Just because people in town were pissed at how far someone would go to keep a golden child shining. It blew past its goal in 10 days. I got donations from people I barely remembered, former teachers, old church ladies, a guy who fixed our gutters once when I was 11. Every one of them had something to say about fairness and futures. Some left notes like, "We see you, Blaine," or "This is for every kid who got passed over." Then came the call from Dr. Nadine Kress, admissions director at the college I'd planned on before the whole thing blew up. She didn't waste time. "Your grades hold. Your faculty recommendations were stellar. I'm offering you a full ride for the first year and a partial merit package beyond that. You've earned this, Blaine." I thanked her without knowing how to say half of what I felt. I didn't feel like I won. I felt like I'd aged a decade in 2 months. The exhaustion never left. It was a hum under my ribs, a weight in the back of my neck. Even when the news quieted down, even when people stopped staring at me in the grocery store, I couldn't relax. But move-in day still came. Grandma drove me in her Buick, the binders riding shotgun like co-pilots. I unpacked slow, folded clothes into the drawers, like I didn't quite believe they'd get to stay there. That night, I sat on the dorm bed and looked around the room. No lies on the walls, no threats in the hallway, just a plain desk, a new key in my hand, and the sharp clarity that I got here 2 ways: my own work and my grandma's refusal to be quiet. I'm telling you this now as a man in his late 50s, because the lesson didn't fade with time, it sharpened. That first year away, I learned how to walk into a classroom without a pit in my stomach. I learned how to keep things locked when they mattered and open when they didn't. And I learned that silence isn't always peace. It's sometimes the space where people bury what they don't want you to find. Grandma Irene never bragged. She just kept the binders in a kitchen drawer like a smoke alarm, quiet, ready, never for show. She didn't say, "I told you so." She just made coffee, folded receipts, and told the truth with her back straight. Tamsin and I rebuilt something over time. It was slow, and we never called it fixed. There's no back to normal for us, because normal is what broke us in the first place. But she showed up, and she kept showing up. Not with words, with receipts, with accountability. That counted more than anything. My dad tried to apologize the only way he knew how, through tasks. He patched drywall in my first apartment, paid the copay when I had bronchitis one winter, sent me gas money with no comment attached, but he still flinched anytime the truth showed up in a sentence. He avoided eye contact when the topic edged too close. He carried guilt like a belt he couldn't unbuckle. Then there was my mom. She sent one letter after I left, 3 pages typed, full of explanations and justifications and careful little rewrites of what really happened. But not once did the word sorry appear. Not even close. I didn't respond. I didn't post about it or rip it up or turn it into a speech. I just folded it once and slid it in the bottom drawer of my desk, and I stopped giving her new chances to rewrite me. The public fallout hit her eventually. The church titles faded, the reputation cracked, the whisper network turned audible. People who used to praise her learned to pause before saying her name. But the private justice mattered more. My education moved forward. The money trail got corrected. The legal definitions were carved into stone, not left up to charm or memory or guilt. That winter break, I came home to fix the porch swing like I said I would. The chain had snapped the year before, and I'd promised her I'd get to it. I stood outside in the cold with a wrench and a socket set, and she stood in the doorway, watching, arms crossed, not saying a word. When I finished, she nodded once. Before I left, she told me, "A boundary isn't a punishment. It's a door you control." That stuck, because the first time I stopped accepting what I was handed and started protecting what was mine, that's when my life actually began. One last thing, can I ask you something personal? If you've got the hype button, tap it to support this video and help it reach more people. Then please hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Now tell me this, if a parent betrayed your future, would you keep the door open or would you shut it for good?